Hi guys, Spartan765. Today I'm doing a video review on a new rifle I got here. Gander Mountain's been going through its out of business sale, so I picked up this thing here at 40% off. Got it for 200 bucks. This is a Ruger American rifle in 30-06. Now, it did not come with the scope. This scope was also bought separately. But these rifles online you could find anywhere from, I think the cheapest I could find online was about $290. But you'll regularly see them in stores for, $425, $380. But they are really good rifles, and they can be had in, depending on where you look, in store for under $330, $330-ish. They are great shooting rifles. I haven't fired this one yet, but I've never heard a bad thing said about Ruger American rifles. This is the standard model. They also make another one called a Ruger Ranch, which is a thicker barrel. For just, range shooting or hunting, I don't really see a need for a thicker barrel. I have other rifles with bull barrels, but this thing comes in really nice and light, right at about 6 pounds with the scope. Again, this is a 30-06, so it's the long action. They do utilize their own proprietary bolt. They're not a copy of like a Remington bolt or a Mauser or anything like that. The bolts on these from the factory are very smooth, but I went ahead and did a bolt job anyway just to make it literally butter smooth. And I also did a trigger job. These do come with good triggers. They're adjustable from 3 pounds to, or 3.5 pounds to 5 pounds, I think. I took it apart, polished up all the contact surfaces, did a nice little trigger job, and I got the trigger down to right about, I'd say 2 pounds at the lowest setting, and it is just super. There's no take up, really nice crisp break. It's going to be a great shooting gun, and like I said, these guns are easily capable of sub MOA groups. You don't see much bad on the internet about these. The only complaint I had is the stock. It is a polymer stock, what you're going to expect. I mean, they do make a lot of aftermarket chassis and wood stocks for these. But the stock here, as you can see, it came like this, where it was not free-floated. And they are advertised as free-floated, and they are bedded using a V-block. That's proprietary to Ruger. Now, I'm sure there are other companies that utilize a V-block type bedding system to lock the rifle down perfectly. And this is just Ruger's way of doing it, which is great because it gives you a nice, accurate shooting gun right out of the box. All I had to do was take a Dremel with a sanding disc and go in here and smooth it out real nice. So now she is perfectly free-floated. Also, torque the bolts, the stock bolts that hold the receiver onto the stock. There's 2 of them, one here and one here. Make sure you don't, just go and wrench those as tight as they'll go. That's just wrecks a gun. Torque them to 60 to 80 foot-pounds. Or not foot-pounds, inch-pounds. 60 to 80 inch-pounds. That's the manufacturer's spec. And if you torque them both the same, I mean, the closer you have the 2 screws torqued together, will enhance your accuracy. If you have one just wrenched and the other one loose, that's going to cause the stock to, or the barrel to not seat properly in the stock. Alright, now on to the scope. I got the scope for 200 bucks. The scope was 50% off. This is the Zeiss right here, 3x9 by 42. I think they call it, it's the Terra 3X. Not a bad scope at all. It does have a bullet drop compensator, but there's nothing in that, in there. It's not specifically for a certain caliber, like a lot of hunting scopes are. You'll need to find a dope chart, and you can go from there and type in, get your model of scope, what bullet you're shooting, and it'll give you a rough estimation of, what each indication means. Just looking at it, I'd say it's probably more suited for something, 30-aught, maybe a 300 Win Mag. Between a 30-06 and a 300 Win Mag is about, just looking at, the lines drop where they, line up for, 300 meters, 400 meters, 500 meters. But, that's obviously not precise. You need to look at a dope chart, which is fine. It would have been nice to have an optic that was specific to a 30-06, a general 30-06. Obviously, if you're shooting a 170 grain over 150 grain, there's going to be a bit of a difference. But I mean, just a generalization, like this scope is charted for, or rated for 150 grain, 30-06. That's what it was zeroed for. That'd have been great, because then you can go, okay, from there, 170 grain is going to drop a little bit more, so it'll probably be about right here. That's nice to have. But like I said, dope chart. Zeiss makes good stuff. You can't go wrong with a Zeiss scope. I mean, I'm not a big fan of buying a good rifle and then putting a cheap, crappy optic on it. Even though this rifle was fairly cheap, it's not a crappy rifle. All of your bolt guns are going to be fairly cheap. Your entry-level bolt guns are all going to be cheap. Like your Remington 700 polymer stock, I would never buy a Remington 700 polymer stock. If you're going to get a 700, get one with a wood stock. The polymer stocks can barely even be called Remington 700s because the build qualities are just horrible. This is way better than a Remington 700. I think they're called the SPS of the polymer stocks. But would I say this is better than a regular Remington 700? Probably not. Good Remington 700 CDL, BDL, they're just fantastic. Fantastic shooting guns all around. By the way, this does have a 4-round detachable box mag, which is one thing I don't like about it, which means, you can't, there's no drop plate or follower. You can't load rounds from the top of the receiver with the bolt open. You have to take the magazine out and load the magazine manually, and then put it back in, which means for hunting use, it'd probably be a good idea to carry, 3 or 4 extra mags. Rather than just carrying a bunch of extra shells. You get 3 or 4 of these if you're going to go on a 7-mile walk. Don't say, oh, you can't hit the deer in the first shot, you suck. Well, it's not about that. It's about, hey, if you're fucking out for deer and there's coyotes and there's porcupines and other shit you're shooting at when you're on your walk, you have extra ammo. And yeah, if you can't hit that fucking coyote running 40 miles an hour across the field, 200 yards out, you don't know how to shoot. Those people just need to drive the fuck up, because I'd like to see that individual try and shoot said coyote running at 40 miles an hour with 1 shot. Doesn't matter how good you are, that's a very hard shot to make. So having 3 or 4 of these, I don't really think that's a bad idea. They are expensive. They're right about $30 a piece. Like I said, I really wish it was a floor plate and follower design where I could just, put rounds in without having to have a magazine. These types of rifles, I'm not a huge fan of having magazines on, or detachable box magazines. I like the internal box mag. Now I know there are kits you can get for this particular rifle where you can put a 10-round detachable box mag on there. There's companies that make that, which is cool. But necessary for hunting? Probably not. Anyway, that's just a review on that. Oh, by the way, I did put steel Weaver scope rings on here. They were about $30. I didn't get cheap scope rings either. I'm not a fan of those cheap, shitty aluminum rings. Anyway, comments, questions, send me a message, part 7.